Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be breaking down Captain America's Ultimate because it is very misunderstood, and I want to talk to you guys about the 6 ways to use Captain America's Ultimate, and we're going to start from the worst ways to use his Ultimate to the best, most impactful ways to use Captain America's Ultimate that can really help swing games in your favor. And first things first, let's talk about his ultimate because not a lot of people know what it does. People are getting better at actually understanding the mechanics behind this, but most people still have no idea what's going on. So when you pop Captain America's ultimate for 10 seconds, you're in a freedom charge. You have enhanced speed, you gain 150 health yourself, and you will recover 100 points of that bonus health each second. So basically over the whole duration of Captain America's ultimate, you'll get 1,050 extra health and damage that you can eat, which is pretty freaking crazy. But also during Captain America's ultimate, you will leave this trail, and this trail lingers for 5 seconds. And when you have this trail active, any enemies that are allies that stand in this trail will also get the same benefits. They get a 30% speed boost, and they will get 100 bonus health and gain 60 a second for the duration of the ult. So over the whole course of duration of someone standing in your ultimate, they're going to get 640 bonus health and shields. So now that we've explained what his ultimate does, let's talk about the ways people use his ultimate, starting with the worst way. The worst way people use his ultimate is people will literally just like dive in, charge, they'll take a fight, and they'll randomly just pop ult, and they'll just go like try to chase kills, and they're really not even thinking about what their ult even does. They probably didn't even know you could boop like that, and they're just diving in and they're being reckless. And maybe their allies are getting some shielding too, but you're basically just charging in and using it to chase kills. That is definitely the worst way to use Captain America's ultimate, and I would say you probably never want to use his ult like that because there's so many better ways to utilize his kit. Now, the second way people use his ultimate, which isn't necessarily a bad way, but people will pop his ultimate when he's low and he's about to die, kind of as like a last ditch get out of jail card to try and survive. Now, I'm not saying that's actually a bad thing, but it really depends on the context in which you pop your ult. So a lot of times people will just pop it to survive, and either A, they'll still die because they're still taking too much damage and they're not sure what they can live through and what they can't live through. Like, for example, if Punisher's ulting you and you think this is going to save you, you're in for a rude awakening. You're literally still going to die. But in some situations, you can stay alive. But is it worth staying alive? The only time I would pop the ultimate to actually stay alive is if I'm the first one on my team who's about to get picked and I really need to stay in the fight so we can keep a 6v6. But if we're already losing a team fight and I'm like last 3 or pretty close to dying, it's 9 times out of 10, it's going to be way better to save your ultimate. So don't always think just because you're getting low and you're about to die, you need to pop your ultimate to stay alive, because you really need to make sure the rest of your team is alive first. If the rest of your team is dead, then there's really no point in you popping your ult because you're losing a lot of that team fight value out of it. So just die. It's smarter to just die and respawn with your team and save your ult for the next fight than it is to just pop it to stay alive and just survive a fight. Unless you're the first one that's going to be picked. That's solely conditioned. If you're the first one about to get picked and then they're going to snowball the fight because the tank is dead, pop your ult, stay alive, and then retreat back to your healers. So now we're going on to the third way people use his ultimate. And this was probably the least common way because most people aren't actually aware of this. So one thing I did forget to talk about at the start of this video is that when you pop your ultimate, your shield actually has a displacement booping mechanic as long as your shield is active. So you can actually get some cheeky plays. You can boot people off ledges. And like the third way people use this ultimate is they'll randomly just jump in a team fight and then they'll pop ultimate and then they'll just basically run around and create chaos. And honestly, Captain America was low-key like the first thing, because basically you just do like this knockback and stuff. And this isn't actually a bad way. There are some moments where you kind of just need to use your ultimate to just distract and displace the enemy team. More on that later. But it's not the ideal way I would recommend it. And I'll be honest, when I played Captain America for like 18 hours and I didn't even realize his shield actually boot people. And then after I discovered that, like for the next 3 days, all my ultimates look like this. I'm being honest, guys. For the next 3 days, all I was doing is testing out the booping mechanic, and that's literally the only reason I was using his ultimate, was just to like cause chaos and boop. And that's how I know it's really not good. And it's also not super consistent with the boop. So a lot of times when I would try to like get crazy plays and knock people off the edge of the map, it wouldn't actually work out. And a lot of times people can still like maneuver their characters. Like the way these bots are getting booped isn't how characters who are actually moving get booped. A lot of times it's not as accurate, and a lot of times they are still able to do what they need to do. It's really not that crazy. It's good, but it's not like game changing crazy. So now we're going to go into the top 3 ways to use your ultimate, starting with to initiate team fights. Now, here's the only issue with this one. Like, basically, if you're like 6v6 and you're about to take the first fight of a game, by all means, initiate, lead the charge, go in with your shield, and have your teammates follow you to get that extra speed and shielding so y'all can have a swift victory during that team fight. However, what I will say is that because the only way to actually get really good value out of initiating with it most of the time, unless you stay behind your whole team and intentionally run through them, which is something you can do, especially if people don't know what Captain America's ult does. That's something I used to do. I used to stand behind my teammates, and whenever they would go in, I would let the other tank lead, and then I would just go through my team, charge through, and then go into the fight so they would get some healing and shielding, even though they probably had no idea what's going on. So the only issue with that is you really do need a coordinated team to actually pull off that one. And people who actually understand what the ultimate does, because a lot of people don't actually know what this ultimate does still. But initiating with the ult is actually really good to swing a team fight in your favor. Now we're going on to the top 2 ways I like to use Captain America's ult. And the first way the first one out of these 2 is to actually stall objectives, payloads, carts. Man, Captain America, like jumping back and forth on like a payload, like to stall it from the enemy team moving it, is crazy. And people like, especially now you can hold your shield up, people have so much trouble like killing you. So you can literally stall a cart for so long, just holding your shield up, jumping back and forth, especially if they don't have good aim. And if they have good aim and you're about to die, then you can literally pop your shield and get 10 seconds of basically just being alive and bunny hopping over the point. And you doing this, you can stall objectives mad, like any point objective where people are trying to take it, any kind of payload map. Like I have used this to stall for my whole team to respawn and come back when I was the only one on the point before. And whenever that happens, it's absolutely insane. And you can do that as Cap. You can stall things super freaking hard. It's a lot better for stalling, but you can also use it for pushing. Like if you're pushing a cart and the enemy team is pushing your cart hard, you can literally just pop your ult, run around the cart so everybody's playing on the payload or the objective gets that healing and shielding. But this is probably like the second best way to use Captain America's ult, because if you get really good at like utilizing this and like maneuvering and moving around, Captain America's so hard to lock down, and you can basically stall objectives for so damn long. Which is going to bring me into the last, final, best way I like using Captain America's ultimate, and that's as a pseudo-defensive ultimate. All right, so hear me out. So basically, Captain America's ultimate is basically a pseudo-support ultimate. We already talked about it. 150 health for you, plus 100 a second, each second it's up, plus 100 health for your teammate, and 60 second each second it's up, which means over the course of the ultimate, you get 1,050 extra health for yourself, but all your teammates, if they're in it for the full duration and following your trail, get 640 extra health and shielding. This is so freaking useful. You can use it like you hear Eye of Agamotto, you just dive back on your team, pop your ultimate, and run around and pull out your shield and start booping people around. And you basically just saved a crazy Eye of Agamotto play. Or if Psylocke dives in and starts to ult your teammate, you can literally, if it's just you and another teammate and you pop your ultimate, Psylocke will not kill that player because you get enough shielding to actually mitigate the ultimate. All right, so I actually didn't have a third person to actually record it with like healing an ally, but what I did is I just injured myself. Granted, I am getting a little bit more shielding per second than I would give to my allies, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys how that looks like from my standpoint, dealing with these ultimates. So this is what it looks like.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
And there's a lot of cool little interactions like that, and those are like game-changing plays, and this actually makes Captain America a really solid pick for 2 support comps that don't have 2 of the big game-changing defense ultimates. So if you're running like Luna Snow with like an Adam Warlock or Jeff the Landshark or the Raccoon, who don't have those team-saving supports that people will flame them for, you can actually just run Captain America and your team will be just fine, because Captain America is a tank who actually brings a pseudo-support ult to the kit. You can pop it to counter ult, use your shield to displace people, and you can save your teammates from like certain death. And honestly, you do that and people will be calling you the real Steve Rogers in chat. And that's it, guys. This is my Captain America video. These are the 6 ways I have learned through trial and error, by the way, because Captain America's ult took forever to actually understand when the best moments to use it were. And I hope this actually compressed the info down for you. And if you learned something today, please comment down below. And if you have a way you use Captain America's ult that I didn't discuss here, I want to know. Comment down below. Anyways, guys, have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile. I will see y'all on the next one.